Welcome to part 2 of building a hybrid benchtop power supply. Part 1 was about almost all of the hardware, so this one's going to be about the remaining step-down converter, along with the firmware and the 3D printed bracket to hold the display in place. Starting with the step-down converter, I based my design from this schematic that was generated by TI's Webench. And the reason I chose to use a single IC that includes the regulator and the switching transistors is in part for simplicity, but mostly because I didn't have any more space on my PCB to add any other separate power transistors. So here's a part of the schematic about the switching converter, which I already showed quickly in the previous video. Starting with VIN 1 and 2, these are just the power supply pins. Then VCC is produced internally by the IC. The bias pin is disconnected in our case. The enable pin is connected to a voltage divider, which makes it so that the IC doesn't turn on if there isn't about 12 volts on the input. Mode sync temp, I don't remember even what that is, but I'm not using it. RT is connected to a resistor whose value determines the switching frequency. In this case, a 40 kilo ohm resistor means that the switching frequency will be about 400 kilohertz. Next, the power good pin I don't use, although I did connect it to the microcontroller just in case I change my mind in the future. The feedback pin just receives a feedback voltage. The switch 1 and 2 pins have the output of the power transistors, and then the bootstrap pin is used for the high side switch inside the IC and needs a bootstrap capacitor. All we have after that is the inductor, the output capacitor, and the voltage divider for the feedback pin, the low side of which is the digital potentiometer that I talked about in part 1. This will be controlled by the microcontroller through I2C. Alright, so let's move on to the 3D printed bracket that will be holding the display in the front panel. You can see it here. I designed it in FreeCAD, and I don't have a ton of experience in this, but I feel like I did an okay job. The part here in the middle is the display itself. I'm obviously not going to print that, but at least it gives an idea of how this will fit together. Then I also added part of the front plate, which will have the cutout in which the whole thing will fit. And with that being done, we can export it into a step format. Now with this file, I can order the 3D print from PCBWay, which is also the kind sponsor of this video. As you can see here, it's super easy. It's kind of like ordering a PCB, but maybe even simpler. I upload the file, select a few parameters like the material, the number of pieces that I want, the color, and then I can place my order. Shortly after, you can see I got everything delivered at my doorstep, and I have to say I'm really happy with it. The print quality is really nice, and you can see it's doing its job perfectly here. So whatever you might need for your projects, whether it's 3D printing, PCBs, or just about anything else, definitely check out PCBWay because they've got some really awesome stuff. Alright, so the next step is to solder everything up. First, I do all the SMD components, obviously, and I'm leaving out the buck regulator because I'm going to do that manually next, as you can see here. And I have to say it's pretty tricky. I think a part of it is the fact that the solder paste that I'm using is just terrible. In fact, every time I use it, it clumps up and just doesn't behave like the stuff that I was using in university for my projects. So that's kind of the reason I think it's not my fault or something I'm doing wrong. Here you can see a close-up of the 4 sides of it. Finally, I added 3 extra components that I didn't think about when I was making the PCB. One is a discharge resistor for the big electrolytic capacitor, because otherwise it just stays charged for a long time, unless there's a load attached, obviously. The second thing is a small load resistor on the output, and that's there because the linear regulator has a little bit of a hard time regulating down to 0 volts without any load, so apparently that's necessary. And then I put a reverse diode on the output, and the idea is that this would be fused, so that, for example, if I connect the battery and it's backwards, then it would just blow the fuse and not destroy anything else. Although I did not have the fuse with me, so this is something I'm going to have to add later. Before explaining the firmware, I want to quickly show how the calibration setting works. To start the calibration process, all I have to do is do a quick double toggle, and this enters the voltage calibration mode, so it says U and 10. So it means turn the potentiometer until you get 10 volts on your multimeter connected to the output of the supply. And then to confirm, you do another quick double toggle, and that goes into current calibration mode. If instead you want to cancel the calibration mode, you just do a single toggle and wait for just a moment. And then for the current calibration, it's the exact same thing. It says I in 1.0, so a current of 1 amp. You attach a load and have exactly 1 amp flowing through it. Again, you have to use a multimeter to check this value. And then to confirm that, you do another double toggle, or if you want to cancel the calibration, you do a single toggle. And it goes back to normal mode where you can just use the supply. And now it will be automatically calibrated, and the values will be stored in EEPROM by themselves. So next time I turn it on, it's all pre-calibrated for me. And with all that done, it's time for the firmware. But before that, a couple fuse bits have to be modified. The first one is for the clock divider so that I get at 8 megahertz instead of 1. Then I had to change the brownout detector voltage so that there wasn't this problem that I was encountering before. And lastly, I want that the EEPROM gets preserved every time I reprogram the microcontroller. Technically, this isn't that important now that the project's finished, although I didn't want to have to recalibrate the voltage and current settings every time that I reprogrammed a new version of the firmware. And now we finally get to the firmware. Obviously, the first part has the libraries, then some definitions, and all the variables that we need. In the main function, we start with reading the calibrations from the EEPROM. Then it sets up the SPI for the display, the ADC for reading the current and voltage measurements. It shows the startup sequence with all the low segments turning on one by one. The I2C is used for the digital potentiometer. And then this line just makes sure that the UI pin handler function gets called during the first iteration of the loop. So this loop iterates at a frequency of very roughly 1 kilohertz. This function just checks what the state of the toggle switch on the front panel is in case we want to perform calibrations or change the measurement that we want to read. Then we take the reading from the ADC. The first time around is going to be trash because we didn't start the conversion, but that doesn't really matter. Then we take that measurement and we add it in a big variable that will be divided at the end to get an average measurement. Here, depending on whether we're in normal mode or calibration mode, we either show the value of the measurement of current or voltage. Otherwise, we show the calibration display. Then we update the variable digit index, and this is used to keep track of which digit on the display we're showing so that the multiplexing works fine. Switch measure parameter is to switch between voltage and current, and this happens at every iteration. So in one loop we measure voltage and then the next current and then back to voltage, so that we're always measuring both parameters at the same time and both values are always available to the microcontroller. Set pot is to set the potentiometer value through the I2C so that the voltage on the output of the buck converter is always about 3 volts above the output voltage that we want. Here we start the next ADC conversion. In my case, I don't wait till it's done converting. I just know that it's going to take way less than 1 millisecond, so the delay at the end of the loop will take care of that. And then this last part of code just keeps track of time essentially and works together with the UI pin handler function that we saw at the beginning. And so that's basically it for the firmware. Alright, so now it's time to test this power supply. To start off, here is a static test. This is a regular car headlight, so a 12-volt bulb. And you can see that I'm reaching 9.5 volts more or less and going a little bit over 4 amps. And the interesting thing is that the current is quite stable because the higher the voltage, the higher the temperature of the filament, and so it resists more. In any case, let's try attaching 2 in series to get a higher voltage with the same current. As you can see, we're getting really close to 17 volts and very close to 4 amps. That means that we're definitely reaching 60 watts on this channel. Now instead, let's do some dynamic tests. So let's see what the voltage response is to a load transient. Doing it with the same light bulbs, you can see that there's a very big dip in the voltage output when we connect them. But then if we do it again, it actually goes away. And the reason is in fact that when the filaments are completely cold, their resistance is really low. And even though the light bulb is off, the second time they're already a little bit preheated. So the initial current spike isn't that high compared to when the light bulb is completely cold. So now let's try doing the same thing with a 22 ohm resistor. The current should be about half an amp given the 12 volts. And you can see that from this time scale, there's about no voltage drop. Let's try again zooming in a little bit more. And this seems to be pretty stable as well. Let's try zooming in even more to a 1 microsecond per division scale. Here you can see that there is in fact a drop, although it is about 2 volts on the 12 volts. So that's less than a 20% drop in the voltage, and the whole thing lasts less than 3 microseconds. So I have to say that result is pretty satisfying. Although it is true that this current isn't that high. I mean, half an amp for a 4 amp supply isn't much. And it's also true that these resistors are wire wound inside. They can have some inductance to them, so the current rise isn't as immediate as a normal ideal resistor would create. So let's try this 4.7 ohm resistor to get some more current. You can see once again that from a larger time scale we don't see any drop in the voltage. Although zooming into the 1 microsecond per division scale, we have once again some drop. This time it's a little bit more pronounced. It lasts about 4 microseconds and the drop is about 3 volts or 3 and something volts. Overall, I'd say I'm really happy with this new power supply. It's true that it's not perfect, but considering that I put a limited amount of time into it, I think it actually exceeded my expectations. So I hope this really inspired you to make your own benchtop power supply. This is obviously an essential tool to do just about anything in electronics, so I encourage you to give it a try. In any case, thanks for watching till the end and hope to see you in the next one.